Part 2, for those of you at home, we're going to be starting on page 42. Page 42, looks like that. And so I'm going to pick up, if you watched the earlier video, or if you've not, if you watched one that does 32 to 42 to help you out. And then if not, we're going to pick up from here and see how far we can get through everything to try and help you out from that. Let's see. Now, as we marched into the hall, I could swear I already smelled smoke. The scene out in the field was much more chaotic than any of the teachers could stand for. Kids were running in the field, and the neat little rows of classes were breaking down into mobs of kids, a good many of them pressing up against the fence to see the smoke pouring out of the cafeteria. It wasn't a whole lot of smoke, but it was enough to cause a commotion. I didn't really care to watch the fire, but I had my own problems to think about. If I sound heartless, it isn't because I didn't care about anyone left in the school. I'd overheard the principal say that the school had been cleared and there was nothing to worry about except for the cafeteria burning down, which, believe me, is exactly what the cafeteria deserved. Austin, sit down, please.
He saved my iPad. Keaton took it, and he got it for me.
So nice. I'm so glad I get to get involved. Thank you. While the cafeteria smoked, I fumed, still filled with the anger Austin had put into me that morning. I don't want to talk about it, I told Cheryl when she asked me about the track team. She knew exactly what I meant when I said, and don't ask again. Well, join the club, she said. Why? I mean, what's wrong with you? No, nothing. It's just that the play they're doing this year is Annie. So, guess what snotty little brat is absolutely perfect for the role? Rebecca's trying out? I don't even think she has to. They'll just look at her and give her the role. Looking for someone? Got it, that's my thing. Cheryl continued to complain to me about Rebecca and other things. I turned to look at the school. The firefighters were standing by the fire truck, doing nothing in particular, which meant that the fire was not a big one and had been put out right away. The cafeteria had been saved, although it would probably smell like smoke for the rest of the year. We all know there would be no more school that day, not till they were positive there was no fire left, and the building had a chance to air out. Still, they couldn't let us go home until 3 o'clock, and so the schoolyard began to resemble a junior high school riot, with kids playing all sorts of unruly games that made the teachers all start pulling out their hair. A club? Said Cheryl. Huh? I asked, not having heard her. I said we should form a club of all the kids who are second best. I laughed. Yeah, right. And then one by one, do away with everyone in our way. Mwahahaha. Foreshadowing. No, I'm serious. We could have a club just for fun, something that only we could have, and none of the unbeatable kids could be in it. A second best club. That's a stupid idea. Yeah.
Grab one of those shirts real quick.
Yeah, they're in that back corner of my room over there. That's a stupid idea. No, it's not. We could all go and do things and have fun and really make the unbeatable kids jealous that we thought of it before they did. We'll be one up on them for a change. Yeah? Who'd be in this club? I don't know. We have to think about it for a while. Come up with some names. I'll bet there are lots of kids who want to be in it. My brother, for instance. Nobody else will want to do it. They're just going to laugh at us. But if they don't, Jared, we could be starting something big. A secret club that'll go on for years after we've gone on to high school. I thought about this. Cheryl always had a way of convincing me of things, but this time she wasn't the one who convinced me. It was someone else. Hey, Jared! Someone called. It was that familiar voice. A voice I didn't even want to hear. I could almost see those arrowheads and that red hair and those long, bony arms. Hey, Jared, you want to race? Asked Austin. First race of the season. So this was it. The challenge. Austin was always the one to challenge first. Usually he waited until the second week, when he had seen me run and was absolutely sure he'd be able to beat me. This time, he asked on the second day, and there were too many kids around for me to turn down the challenge. Don't you think it'd be better if we waited till the field was clear? Isn't this clear enough? I turned around. Sure enough, the field was clear enough to race. Austin had come over with about 10 kids, and more kids were joining us because everyone knew what he was up to, and everyone knew about our rivalry. "Maybe we should wait until your legs grow some more," he said. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. Better to be laughed with than laughed at, right? Inside, I wasn't laughing though. "Fine then," I said. "Right now." Austin smiled, that crocodile smile. "Hey, Greg, go about 60 yards out. Judge us." Greg Miller, one of the new 7th graders on the team, obeyed as if he'd been given an order by God. So this is where it begins, I thought. This year's competition. This year's war. I felt strong. I felt ready to run. I felt like I always felt when I raced with Austin, that maybe this time I would beat him. We got down into starting position when Austin got up. Then Austin got up. "Oh, wait, he said, and went and took off his precious shoes, then his socks. He was going to run barefoot. "Okay." He got back down. "Are you ready to lose?" he asked. I didn't answer. Martin Bricker got ready to start us as more and more kids turned to watch. Even teachers were watching. So this is where it begins. "On your mark, get set, go!" I took off like a bullet, cutting through the wind and pounding the grass with every last bit of my strength. I didn't turn to look, but I could see in the corner of my eye that we were neck and neck. 10 yards were gone. I looked toward Greg down the field and concentrated on turning everything I had into power. You have to wait. "This is for every time you beat me in races as a kid." I pushed harder. "And this is for when you came back to do it again last year." I pushed harder. "And this is for how you made me feel this morning." I pushed even harder. We were still neck and neck. 30 yards were gone. 30 to go. The cheers faded away behind us. "And this is for challenging me in front of the whole school. And this is for everything you'll ever try to do to me for the rest of our lives. And this is for those stupid running shoes you wear." 40 yards gone. I was ahead of him by a foot. I was beating him. I pushed harder. 15 yards to go. Only 15 left. And then, like he'd been holding it all back, he flew out in front of me. He didn't inch out. He flew out, like I was standing still. He moved like a machine and fast forward, a ship blasting into hyperspace. He was a foot in front of me, 2 feet, 3 feet. He turned to look at me and smiled, that awful smile of his. I lunged. I dove forward in a wild attempt to reach the finish line before he did. But he was there before I even hit the ground. I was moving so fast that I skidded along the grass, skinning my elbows and ruining my pants. The agony of defeat. I felt like that skier who wipes out on the ski jump every Sunday on Wide World of Sports. The agony of defeat. Skinned elbows and ruined pants, and a laughing lost in space. By now, kids were crowding around Austin. "Wow, did you see Austin take off? Wow, he really beat him bad. Wow, Austin is so fast. Wow this, wow that." Austin was loving every last bit of it. They crowded around him and left me there on the ground to examine my elbows. "You shouldn't race Austin, kid," said a 7th grader. "Austin beats everybody." Austin looked down at me. He was barely even winded. "You ran pretty good." "For a gopher," he said, and everyone laughed. "Gopher! Gopher! Gopher!" They all started chanting. Austin raised his hands and conducted them as they all chanted in unison. "Gopher! Gopher! Gopher!" Over and over again. I could have killed him. I could have ripped him limb from limb. But then I thought about Tyson McGaw. No, I wasn't Tyson. I was civilized. I wasn't going to attack Austin. Instead, I stood up, brushed myself off, and waited till the gopher chanting stopped. Then I looked Austin straight in the face, put out my hand. "Nice race, Austin." I shook his hand. "Let me tell you, it took all my strength to do it, too." "Yeah," he said. "See you around, gopher." I turned and left, while everyone crowded around Austin. My elbows had just begun hurting. Cheryl was there waiting for me. That's one thing about her. She was always there, and she never laughed at me either. "Are you okay?" she asked. I looked back toward Austin, then turned to Cheryl and asked, "So, what are we going to call our club?" Chapter: The Charter at Stonehenge. Stonehenge. I don't think anyone knew what used to be there, but whatever it had been, only the old stone foundation remained, in a clearing in the woods. The stones were worn and covered with moss. Inside the rectangular stone foundation was a pit about 6 feet deep and 20 feet across, filled with bushes and trees. It could have been there for 100 years. Nobody knew. Cheryl Randall and I had found it years ago, exploring as kids, but it seemed too eerie to play in, so we left it alone, filing it away in our heads for future reference. The old foundation sat there in the thick woods between Cheryl's house and the ocean, waiting. I'd always thought of the foundation as waiting for someone to use it again, I guess, or maybe just waiting to disappear into the earth, like the building that once stood above it had. It was waiting, all right, and on the second Friday of 9th grade, I had this certain exciting feeling that it was waiting for us. As Cheryl and I stood on the outer edge of the deep stone foundation, looking into the pit, Cheryl said, "This is great. I couldn't think of a better place to have our meetings." I walked around the edge until I came to a place where the foundation had given way, and the earth sloped down into the pit. I climbed down into the center, and Cheryl followed. "It looks like it could almost be magical. Maybe it's haunted or something." "Well, don't go and make it all spooky," she said. But it was spooky already. Spooky in a fun sort of way, like the mummy cases in the museum or a ghost town. There was a feeling to the place that made anything we could possibly do there seem very, very important. It would give our club meetings a hint of mystery. "What time is it?" 4:15. "They'll be here in 15 minutes. As I looked around, I began to see things you couldn't see from up on the ledge. There were old green Coke bottles and aluminum cans with the old-fashioned pull-off tabs that they stopped making years ago. There were designs on the cans I didn't even recognize. For all I knew, they could have been here since the building came down. All around us were little bits of the past that no one had touched for years and years. It was magical, like that Stonehenge place in England, mysterious rocks with a hidden history. "Let's call this place Stonehenge," I said to Cheryl. "That's great. I like that." She climbed back up to the edge and sat on a moss-covered cinder block at the lip of the pit. The edge of Stonehenge. "I feel like a witch," she said. "You look like one," I said. She stepped right into that one. "Oh, shut up. You know what I mean. It's like we could conjure up ghosts here." "What time is it?" 4:20, said Cheryl. At first, I'd felt funny talking to kids about this club. I was afraid they'd laugh in my face, but no one did. Picking out the kids for the club became like a game. Cheryl and I would keep our eyes open, watching for kids in our exact situation. Kids who were second best, who were miserable about it and had to live under the shadow of some nasty, unbeatable person who rubbed their noses in it every day. We ruled out some kids right away. Others took longer, but finally came up with a list of 5 kids who'd be perfect. We didn't want a big group. 7, including us, was just fine. One by one, either Cheryl or I spoke to them when no one else was around. And you know what? Every single one of them wanted to be in the club. The Shadow Club, as Cheryl and I had named it. So we called the first meeting, then marked the tree so that everyone could find our secret meeting place in the woods. At any second, they would converge on the old foundation, and the Shadow Club would be born. "What time is it?" I asked. Cheryl looked at me with those "give me a break" sort of eyes, and then said, "Stop being ridiculous." So I didn't ask anymore. I climbed back down into Stonehenge to start up the campfire. The sun was near the horizon, and shadows were getting long and dark when everyone finally arrived. By now, the little campfire I had started in the center of the big square foundation pit was burning strong. It wasn't dark, and it wasn't cold, and we didn't have marshmallows to roast, so the campfire didn't seem to make much sense. But it was there for a very good reason that only Cheryl and I knew. I Guess we should start by formally introducing ourselves. Why? Asked Randall. We all know each other already. Shut up, said Cheryl. You'll see. I'll start. I had practiced my speech a few times at home, so I didn't feel funny being the first one to go. My name is Jared Mercer. I am the second best runner in the school, second to Austin Pace, the most conceited, obnoxious, and there we'll stop on page 54. Now you have to read the rest on your own. Good luck.